Thanks.
Well, as you heard, there's still a lot to assess in the wake of this attack. We don't know the motive for what happened in Toronto, but we don't need to in order to draw larger conclusions, some of them ominous. People didn't used to drive vehicles into crowds. They didn't used to shoot up schools either. Easy availability of weapons did not cause what happened today or what's been happening in this country for years. Fewer people drive than used to. Fewer families have guns at home. That is not the point, no matter what they tell you. The point is that more people want to hurt strangers than ever before for some reason. The bonds that hold society together are obviously fraying. Why is that? You'd think our leaders would be thinking hard about this question, since it's the only question that matters, and staying up late trying to come up with a solution, since that's their job. But they're not doing that. Instead, they're obsessing over trivia, fake Russian collusion, transgender bathrooms, fill in the blanks. They're creating diversions. At the same time, they're seizing the moment, using tragedies like this to strip the rest of us of our rights, rights that our ancestors died for. Some wacko murders innocents. Okay, you're no longer allowed to defend yourself in your own home. That's the lesson we're drawing there. ISIS is recruiting on the internet? Great. A perfect pretext to shut down Twitter accounts we disagree with or demonetize your YouTube channel. Instead of fighting extremism, which is in abundance, the left uses the existence of extremism to shut down legitimate dissent and self-defense. In other words, for the crimes of a few, all of us suffer. Meanwhile, the people in charge become more powerful. That's the scariest part, and maybe the whole point. Author and columnist Mark Steyn joins us tonight to break down what exactly is going on. So at some point, do you think the conversation becomes, why would someone want to kill strangers? Why are an increasing number of people wanting to kill strangers? Why aren't we having that conversation?
Because I think the people who run not only Canada, but the entire Western world now, don't want to admit that they no longer have control of the situation.
Yeah.
This part of Toronto, which happens to be my hometown, I was in this neighborhood a couple of weeks ago for a bar mitzvah. All the streets have English names. The school is named after Field Marshal Lord Haig, who commanded British forces during the Great War. They've got streets called Princess and Empress, and there's one named after Lord Byng, who was Governor General of Canada. You can't find anybody with names like that in that neighborhood now. It's become largely Chinese, Korean, there's some Iranians, there's Moroccan Jews, and in this case it's somebody with an Armenian name. And if you look on a society as just like one big stamp collection, and it's nice to have one of everything, then the modern Western city is a great place. But in these multicultural hot pots, grievances develop, regardless of whether it's a global phenomenon like jihad or whether it's just peculiar mental health issues. And then you have a situation where the jihad guys have got a lot of mileage out of taking trucks, driving them up on the sidewalks, killing large numbers of people. You can't reasonably expect that just to be confined to Muslim jihadists. Sooner or later, some guy like this guy with an Armenian name, and Armenia is like 99.99% Christian, apart from a few Yazidis and Kurds. I think there's like about, last time I was there, I think there were 600 Muslims in the whole joint. But you can't expect, when people see that a car can kill large numbers of people, you can't expect people to say, oh, well, yeah, but that's just a Muslim weapon. That's for the jihad. So eventually, other people start renting cars and driving them up on sidewalks.
So, but if you were running a society, and benefiting from it disproportionately, as our leaders do, wouldn't you spend a little bit of time thinking about how to hold it together? What makes a cohesive, successful society, a society that will, for example, wage a war on its own behalf with a foreign adversary? Like, why wouldn't you think about that? I don't get the sense anybody thinks about that at all.
No, they actually don't. They think in opposite terms. In Canada particularly, you saw last year, in fact, for the Dominion of Canada's 150th birthday, Justin Trudeau celebrated it by awarding $10 million to a jihadist he'd had sprung from Gitmo, who killed an American over in Afghanistan. In other words, multiculturalism lets you decide which side of the war you want to be on, whether you want to be on the home team or the away team. That's how good multiculturalism is. You talked about how they use these incidents to take away our rights.
Yes.
In a certain sense, Tucker, it's actually more It's more basic than that, even. I mean, setting the rights to one side. I notice now when you're in London, when you're in Berlin, when you're in Brussels, when you're in Paris, and now, presumably, when you're in Toronto, they're trying to put bollards over every strip of raised pavement so that cars can't get up onto the sidewalk to kill people. So the price we pay in effect, for not having bollards around the national border, is we've now got to ugly up all our cities and have bollards around everything in sight. On the New York bike path, for example, everywhere you go around any western city now, they're looking uglier and uglier because our leaders have, in a sense, established ugliness as the organizing principle of the multicultural city in the 21st century.
That's right. This is what happens when you put security consultants in charge of hardening the target rather than having enlightened leaders think deeply about what it means to have a happy, cohesive society. But none of them care.
I'd like us to soften the target, and that involves thinking about these issues in a bigger picture sense, not just bollards around everything in sight.
That's exactly right. Mark Stein, thank you. That was deep and interesting.